Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Gopijana Ballava Giribharadhare. Gopijana Ballava Giribharadhare. Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachare. Yamuna Tira Vanachare. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Gopijana Ballava Giribharadhare. Gopijana Ballava Giribharadhare. Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana. Raja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachare. Yamuna Tira Vanachare. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Prabhupada. Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Vishnupad, Paramahansa, Parivrajakcharis, Tadasissamad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki, Shri Giri Govardhan Ki, Shri Caitanya Mahaprabhu Ki, Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 25, the descriptions of the characteristics of King Puranjan, verse 34. Ihadya Santam Atmanam Vidama Na Tata Param Yeneyam Nirmita Vira Pure Sharanam Atmana Ihadya Santam Atmanam Vidamana Tataparam Yeneyam Nirmita Vira Puri Sharanam Atmana Ihadya Santam Atmanam Vidama Natataparam Yenayam Nirmita Vira Puri Sharanam Atmana Ihadya Santam Atmanam Vidama Natataparam Yenayam Nirmita Vira Puri Sharanam Atmana Atmana Tataparam Tavira Atmanam Yajasantam Atmanam Natataparam Yanyanamitaparam Purisharanam Atmanam Iha here, adya, today, santam, existing, atmanam, living entities, vidama, that much we know, na, not, tataparam, beyond that, yena, by whom, iyam, this, niramita, created, vira, O great hero, puri, city, sharanam, resting place, atmana, of all living entities. Translation: O great hero, we only know that we are existing in this place. We do not know what will come after. Indeed, we are so foolish that we do not care to understand who has created this beautiful place for our residence. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This lack of Krishna consciousness is called ignorance. In Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.5, it is called parabhavastavad abodhajata. Everyone is born ignorant. The Bhagavatam therefore says that we're all born ignorant within this material world. In our ignorance, we may create nationalism, philanthropy, internationalism, science, philosophy, and so many other things. The basic principle behind all these is ignorance. What then is the value of all this advancement of knowledge if the basic principle is ignorance? Unless a person comes to Krishna consciousness, all of his activities are defeated. This human form of life is especially meant to dissipate ignorance. But without understanding how to dissipate ignorance, people are planning and building many things. After death, however, all of this is finished. Ihajasantamatmanam vidamanatataparam yenayam niramita vira puri sharanam atmana. O great hero, we only know that we're existing in this place. We do not know what will come after. Indeed, we are so foolish that we do not care to understand who has created this beautiful place for our residence. Nama Om Vishnu Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shivati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Vanchakapatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yes, what a a foundational subject matter this is, that where there is not Krishna consciousness, that is called ignorance. Of course, there are so many places, so many ideas which lack Krishna consciousness, and they're just different varieties of ignorance, that's all. An example Prabhupada gave was that people want to accumulate money particularly, and accumulate different assets and things. And when it comes to money, someone may have 10, someone may have 100, someone may have 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000, 1,000,000,000,000. People are working on that now, apparently. But Prabhupada made the point that what are these things? It's just a one followed by a certain number of zeros. And there's no real point of being proud that, look at me, I've got more zeros than you. It's just foolishness in the extreme. We were talking about Lord Ram the other day, Ram Navami Day. And there's the description that on the last day of the battle, when Ravana was the only one left on his side, and everyone else had been destroyed, but on the side of Lord Ram, whoever had been killed had been brought back to life, and you know, there were so many who hadn't been killed, and the number of soldiers of different types that Lord Ram had, the number was, at least in Vedic terms, Sanskrit terms, 1 koti maha-oga, which is 1 followed by 64 zeros. And, you know, generally speaking, well, I didn't know what that's called in English until Smita Krishna Prabhu looked it up on Google, and Google Maharaj informed us that it is a vigitillion. Did you know that? No. It's a vigitillion. Yes, but it's just 1 followed by some number of zeros. And so what is every zero worth? Well, ultimately it's worth 0. So we should not be excited at all by the accumulation of zeros. And so this lack of Krishna consciousness, any type of lack, is called ignorance. And they're just different varieties of ignorance. There's financial ignorance, mathematical ignorance, language ignorance, and you name it, so many things, just so many versions, varieties, types of ignorance. And the lady here, this very beautiful lady who Paranjan has encountered, she is admitting that I'm in ignorance. What do I know? All I know is that I'm existing. Beyond that, I just don't know. Where I came from, how I came into existence, it's just a complete mystery. And what is the value of what I'm doing now? Another complete mystery. And where will it all lead me in the future? Again, it's just a mystery. So I'm in ignorance. I'm just in ignorance. And, well, a particular point that she made is that here we are, we're in the forest. They met in some forest somewhere, and it was very nice, very beautiful looking place. And she says that, we're so foolish, we're so ignorant, that we're not even interested to understand how this beautiful place has come about and who brought it about for us to live in. It's just that it's just more ignorance, different types of ignorance. And that's the situation in general in material life. And at least one thing which struck me, one thing that struck me this morning and yesterday, I was thinking about this. I read through this yesterday and again this morning, and one thing that struck me was that because there's so much ignorance, and wherever you turn, there's just more ignorance, and you turn another way and there's some more or a different type of ignorance. And ignorance, any type of ignorance, it doesn't really matter, cannot be really satisfying. Maybe when you first enter a type of ignorance and you're not familiar with it, and you may think, oh, it looks nice, a nice type of ignorance, but it's just ignorance. And so after a little while, you see that it's ignorance and you become dissatisfied. And then you look for another type of ignorance and you get excited about that. I was thinking about, there was in our youth, there was the hippie movement, which we were sort of connected with, not exactly like really classic hippies, but we were all connected with it. And amongst the hippies, there were those who really, at least at some point, they got the idea that, hey, we've got to change things. This whole situation we're in, where just it's not really, there's no real future in it. So there was a group of hippies who could see, it became clear that the politics, the political situation, the politicians, they're just another part of the nonsense. So we must get into politics. So there was one group of, they had their roots in the hippie movement, but they were like very, very politically oriented. And they could see, or they felt, what's the use of getting into politics, like forming a party, trying to get votes? Shishi Radha Radhanath Shri Giri Govardhan Shri Caitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. What's the point of going about it like that? We should just become violent and just force the change. So that group of hippies was called the Yippies. And there was one of the leaders of the Yippies, and they were talking about revolution, violent revolution, bombing places and killing people and all that. And one of the leaders of that movement, who I'd heard about him. His name was Jerry Rubin. You heard of Jerry Rubin? Anyway, he was one of the leaders of this movement. Let's make a revolution, like a real violent revolution. And then, sometime around that time, I joined Prabhupada's ISKCON, and I sort of I completely forgot about those things, really. But then one day, not so long ago, anyway, whenever it was, some years ago, I was reading some news thing, and there it mentioned this Jerry Rubin, who had been this revolutionary, let's shoot them and bomb them, revolutionary. And what was Mr. Jerry Rubin doing now? He was a stockbroker on Wall Street. If you know what that means, it means like super materialist, just trying to make big money. And he was sponsoring some like welfare activities and so on. And he was saying, yes, I had these ideas in the past, but now, I want to work within the system and try and help. And it just seemed obvious. He sort of, in a sense, he fell down from his conviction of, let's just change, force change. Now he just got sucked into the whole thing again, the whole materialistic way of life, just make money and give some money to help some people, but otherwise make money, have a nice big house and a number of big motor cars and all that. Another interesting case I was thinking about was Oliver Cromwell, who was the father of, the anti-monarchy movement, at least, in England. Yeah, Oliver Cromwell. They wanted to blow up the Houses of Parliament and kill the king and have government for the people, by the people. Democracy. He's like one of the fathers of democracy in England. So Cromwell, they were successful. They kicked out the king and they formed a democratic type of system of some sort. But it was very interesting. After a while, Oliver Cromwell, because he was, he led it through the revolution. And then after the revolution, actually organizing things in the way that they said they wanted to, he was the leader still. But after a while, Oliver Cromwell presented to the parliament or whoever they were that, I think I should be made the king. It's very interesting. I mean, this is the history, British history. Yeah, he wanted to be made the king. So, old habits die hard. And in this material world, there's so much ignorance. And you go from one type, you see one type of ignorance, and you understand this is ignorance. We don't want to be controlled by this. No, we don't want to be under this sort of ignorance. We're going to do something better. But actually, it's another type of ignorance. And so when you get into it, because it's just another type of ignorance, then you see that, this is also not going to help us. Just like the previous arrangement, which we rejected, we took up this, we thought it was going to help us, now we see it's not helping us. And I was reading, Srila Prabhupada was saying, maybe the day before yesterday, I was reading, Prabhupada was saying that there was monarchy in Europe at least, and of course in India there was monarchy on a vast scale. In Europe there was monarchy, but then the monarchs, they exploited people, they abused people. I was reading it, was it in the class? I can't remember. Maybe it wasn't in the class, but Prabhupada was making the point that the problem, what happened to monarchy was that instead of looking after the people, I think I was reading about something to do with Lord Ram actually, Lord Ram was like the father of the people. And he treated them like his dependents, and they, in a natural way, accepted him like their father. And Prabhupada was saying that what happened with the European monarchies is they started abusing the people and taking from the people so they could live high lives and sort of, forgive my French, to hell with the people. We don't care about the people as long as we're doing nicely. And it was like that in Europe. In England it was like that. In France it was like that. What was her name? Was it Anne Boleyn? I think it may have been her. One of the Antoinette. That she's living in Versailles, which is, I don't know, maybe the biggest palace on the planet with just, massive facilities. And she's told, look, the people don't have anything to eat. They got nothing to eat. They're starving. They're dying. They don't have bread. And I guess it was Marie Antoinette said, well, let them eat cake. It's just typical of the mentality. They get into that powerful situation. But unlike Lord Ram, they took that situation and made the most of it for themselves. So anyway, Prabhupada's talking about that because of that, the monarchical system in Europe particularly, and maybe in India too, because some of the Indian Maharajas, they were living in sort of fantastic circumstances, just unbelievable circumstances. And the people got fried. And so there was revolution, either like military revolution or just revolution through democracy, just getting more votes. But then Prabhupada said, because democracy is just another, well, you could say ignorance, it's just another trick, actually. It's just another trick for some smart people to get control and use the situation for their benefit in the name of, the people are deciding and, the people are the ones who matter. So Prabhupada makes the point that sooner or later it will change to dictatorship. Yeah, because democracy will fail. And I mean, if you look around, you see democracy has failed and is failing. Yes. So anyway, that's what Prabhupada said. Sooner or later it'll turn to dictatorship. And like, our gentleman in America, we will not mention any names, he's trying his best to make it a dictatorship as much as he can. Haribol. So anyway, that's the problem in this material world. The problem is that without Krishna consciousness, even if you come up with some apparently bright ideas how to live and how to run things, then it's just going to fail. And when it fails, it hurts. And the people just become frustrated, and eventually they become too frustrated, and they just won't continue. So that's life in this material world. It's really quite amazing how it's going on. And it's also very amazing, it's really wonderful, it's also amazing, to see Srila Prabhupada's conviction of this fact. He's just again and again and again and again and, again, like hundreds and thousands and more than that, times making this point that without Krishna consciousness, then no future, no matter how bright it looks, no future is going to be successful, is going to really help us. Yes, so anyway, life in the material world. Prabhupada makes the point here in the purport. We may create so many things: nationalism, philanthropy, nationalism, and then, when that doesn't really work, internationalism. Yes. Philanthropy, help the people. We read in the news quite some years ago, like maybe it was 20 or even 30 years ago, how one German philanthropic organization was taken to court because some of the supporters had found out that of all the many millions or however much money was donated to the organization on the basis of let's helping some type of suffering people, but some calculations had been done and they found it was something like 1% of all the funds which were donated, literally about 1%. It may have been slightly less even than 1%, but just a minute portion of what was given was actually used for the specific activities for helping the poor or the suffering or the sick or whoever they were. And the rest was going in wages and, facilities, because, our people have to be paid and they need motor cars to move around to help the suffering people. and they need living quarters in order to be able to go out and help the suffering people. But the people working for the organization were doing extremely well. But the people who were suffering, who they're meant to be helping, it was like 1% or less was actually going to those activities. And this was in the news. Down here in South Africa, it was in the news. So, of course, we have to watch out for that ourselves. That's really true. Yes, right. So anyway, Prabhupada says we may create nationalism, philanthropy, internationalism, science, philosophy, and so many other things, but the basic principle behind all these is ignorance. So what is the value of all this advancement of knowledge if the basic principle is ignorance? It's not really knowledge. If knowledge means to distinguish reality from illusion, and the Bhagavatam says, the second verse, for the welfare of all. So this, what they call knowledge, there's one place, at least I encountered, Srila Prabhupada explained, that this knowledge about, scientific knowledge, and this and that, how to improve living standards and all of that. Prabhupada made the point that this is not actually knowledge. Prabhupada said it is just material cleverness. It's not actually knowledge in the pure sense of the term of distinguishing reality from illusion for the welfare of all, which is Krishna consciousness. So what is the value of all this advancement of knowledge, in inverted commas, if the underlying principle of it all, and ultimately the product at the end of it all, is ignorance? And ignorance means suffering. It's just, how do you want to suffer? Without money or with money? And you think that if you suffer with money, it's not suffering. But don't worry, it is. Yeah, you're just suffering with money. So anyway, Prabhupada's emphasizing here, and in so many other places, Prabhupada emphasizes this point. Unless a person comes to Krishna consciousness, all of his activities are defeated. And I was reading or listening yesterday to Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada referred to famous verse from the second chapter of the first canto. It's verse 8. This is one we should definitely learn. Dharma svanustita pumsam vishvaksena katasuya notpadayed yadiratyam shrama evahi kevalam. Prabhupada's translation: the occupational activities a man performs according to his own position are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the personality of Godhead. And I've mentioned on a number of occasions the way the verse, it's Sutta Goswami, the way the verse is making this point that all these activities are only so much useless labor if they don't, inspire us for Krishna consciousness. It's really amazing. Shrama eva hi kevalam. Shrama means useless labor. Eva means only. He means certainly. Kevalam means entirely. How could you put it more strongly than that? It wouldn't be easy. It is only, certainly, entirely useless labor. How's that? Pretty emphatic. Really emphatic. In a sense, it's one of the most emphatic verses in Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's the same point, and Prabhupada's purport is exploring the same point. Yes, how because all these things, whichever way you try material life, because it's all ignorance, sooner or later, whichever little path you go down of ignorance, you become frustrated and unhappy, and you reject it. Like when I was studying, extremely apathetically, I was studying philosophy in university. There was a philosopher, and I can't even remember his name, but I think it may have been Wittgenstein, but I'm sure it's possible to look it up if anyone wanted to. He came up with the philosophy of the doubt, that, we must not just be naive and just accept what people tell us. We must doubt and think about it and really try and see what is what here. So he had this philosophy of the doubt, which in a sense means you just try and think and really understand. So he became somewhat popular. In those days, philosophers were fairly popular. Amongst the people in general to some degree. So he became popular on the basis of the philosophy of the doubt. But then after a while, we're told, he made a sort of announcement or pronouncement to his followers that you're all fools. You're all fools for following me because I doubt my philosophy. And I mean, it's a point. And he probably ended up doubting his doubt. But what can you do? Material life. It's just one dead end after the other. Yes. So anyway, this is what the lady who Puranjan has met, this is, you could say, what she's, the bottom line of what she's saying, that, yeah, we're in ignorance. We're just in ignorance. And we don't, at least in a certain sense, we don't even care that we're in ignorance. You know, they say, what is it? Religion is, that was Marx, I think. Religion is the opiate of the people, because it just dulls them. You know, you get into this state of feeling, you know, some intoxicated happiness that actually you've just been immobilized and you're just sort of wiped out. So religion is the opiate of the people, that it just shuts people down, stops them thinking. But devotees made the point that actually sense gratification is the opiate of the people. And this is what democracy and materialism, capitalism, is trying to do. Let everyone get money so they can get things which they can enjoy, and then there won't be revolutions. Then they'll accept, you know, if we're enjoying sufficiently, then okay, let the people who are governing, let them carry on, and we'll just enjoy. But now they're realizing, and some devotees, actually some years ago, before COVID, they came up, they realized that, you know, the capitalistic society is one of accumulation, getting more things and just more of anything which is enjoyable. But then the devotees presented, and now some other people, non-devotees, are also realizing very clearly that this planet can only produce so much. And then the planet will run out. And that's it. And the devotees, they wrote a book about it, and they made a prediction that at the rate that this consumer society is consuming more and more and more, and, you know, the people who used to be poor people, they're also getting into it and consuming more and more. They made some prediction it'll only take so many years before the planet will run out. And then, what are the people going to do? Oh, Krishna, how about go to the moon and do it there? Yes. And if that's not enough, go to Mars. I mean, it's sure, talk about ignorance. It's unbelievable. So, and it's all based on the lack of Krishna consciousness, actually. And as soon as it becomes possible for enough people to understand Krishna consciousness and influence the world situation in that way, then the situation can be corrected, or a start can be made to really correcting the situation. Yes. So Prabhupada concludes, this human form of life is especially meant to dissipate ignorance, but without understanding how to dissipate ignorance. People are planning and building many things. After death, however, all of this is finished. Yeah, and in the meantime, even before it's all finished, in the meantime, the level of frustration increases and increases, and the scale of it, I mean, in terms of the number of people, increases and increases. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Any comments, questions? Yes, Maharaj, please. Where's the mic? Oh, the mic. Has the mic failed? Can use this one.
Hello. Jai, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. And you were speaking about the lavish lifestyle of kings and queens. Where I live in Toronto, about 2 kilometers from the temple, is a shoe museum, a museum for shoes. And they have on display famous shoes, like by famous people, Elton John, Glenn Gould, Elvis Presley, like that, right? But they also have on display a pair of shoes from a Maharaj from India. And it's really fancy looking. And it has like kind of like, by the heel, there's like a little pouch there full of perfume. So every time you take a step, the perfume squirts out, you know, it goes into the air. So I'm just saying this, it goes a little bit extreme when it comes to lavish living, and I think we can come up with many other examples like that. Hare Krishna.
I just read, because I'm preparing this video presentation about Varshana and related things. The king of Jaipur, who built, if you're familiar with the, the setup of things in Varshana, what they call the Jaipur temple, which is, just across from the main famous Radharani temple. So it looks like a Rajasthani palace, because it was built by this king of Jaipur, Rajasthani. And yes, I did a bit of research about him, and he was living a pretty opulent lifestyle. Amazing lifestyle. Maybe not quite as, what would you say? Well, just cleverly thoughtful, that one. But these people had Rolls Royces. Now they're just sort of clunky old cars, but Rolls Royce back 100 years ago. And a number of palaces, and 5 wives he had. Well, maybe he was a more conservative one. Anyway. Yes, going overboard. But he helped. Did things to help people. So he probably thought, I'm doing good. But there were so many of them like that. The king, the Nizam of Hyderabad, was a Muslim. And he had crystal chandeliers. And you probably heard about this one. One day, a piece of crystal fell off the chandelier, one of the chandeliers, and tinkled on the ground as it broke. And he was there and he thought, oh, what a nice noise. So he had his people just, systematically throwing the crystals off the chandeliers onto the floor. And he was like, ah. It's actually insanity. Yes, Maharaj.
I just wanted to give another example of extravagant life. So to get here, I came through Atlanta. And my flight was delayed, so I missed a whole day. But anyways, we were driving. We went to see Martin Luther King's memorial and all that. So we were driving, and in front of us there was one of those cars that drive automatically.
Oh.
Right? And we passed that vehicle, and yes, there was no one driving. There was somebody on their phone, though, talking like anything. Now, the problem with that lavish aspect, it creates so much inconvenience. So one devotee there was telling me, there's a few of those cars in town, and what happens is it's all about them. The cars just move at a certain pace, and people have a hard time to get around them, So it's just an inconvenience that is sparked, or created as a result of one person's incredible convenience. So that's, what happens all the time.
And many of them have had accidents, I've heard.
Right.
And people have died.
Yeah.
I read about one of the first of those a few years ago. It was like a motorhome, sort of like a Winnebago sort of thing. And the driver, it had not like supposedly autonomous control, but it had just automatic speed control. And the owner thought it meant it was now autonomous, although it was just speed control. He thought now you can just leave it and it'll drive itself. And he smashed. He survived, but his vehicle got smashed.
Oh.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for that thoughtful class. I was thinking about this whole principle of being enamored by material life and all that it supposedly has to offer. And for devotees sometimes, we must be cultivating knowledge to distinguish illusion from reality. But sometimes we also get caught up with growing our material circumstances, our material facilities. And not only that, sometimes it's promoted, I've seen, balance your spiritual, that famous catchword, balance is used. It's promoted sometimes, and sometimes it's seen as very irresponsible if you're not of a certain level materially while practicing bhakti. How do we be safe from that tendency or from that type of indoctrination and preaching that is sometimes in some ways quite common, I've seen around.
Sure.
Even in presentations in classes and
sure.
Our social media influences within our movement, they speak about these things. Yeah.
Yes. Well, we have to try to maintain, Prabhupada's sort of general perspective on just living, how you exist as a devotee, was simple living and high thinking. So somehow or other, we have to use our intelligence to to try and see how to live like that as much as possible. You know, living under a tree, that's one thing. But anyway, from there, at what stage on the way up in terms of material facilities do I really need an iPhone 17 Pro Max, or will my 15 do? This is the question. I mean, this is a relevant question. Yes. So, and we also, you know, we need the association. The company we keep, the association we get is so extremely important that the association of devotees who have experience and sort of the types of discretion that can make decisions of that sort in terms of material facility and what is required and what will, you know, sort of do the job nicely, and what is really going to be extravagance. So to have the association of devotees like that will definitely help. And for oneself to pray to Krishna, please give me the discretion that, you know, what living facility, what sort of vehicle facility, and what sort of clothing facility, and, you know, like that, do I actually require and will be truly constructive for my life in Krishna consciousness and my efforts in devotional service. Like this. What would your comment be?
Well, I find that in the practice of bhakti, there's a lot of opulence that seems to come sometimes to us. Lots of offers for this, lots of offers for this, and nice armchair that Maharaj is talking about. But yeah, you know, like as preachers, sometimes so many things come. And yes, sometimes it's like you're in a dilemma. If I don't accept it, there's going to be disappointment on the offers, you know, the person
yes,
was offering. So there's that aspect. But then you also know that I'm really uncomfortable with this.
yes.
It's not what I grew up with in my training in Krishna consciousness.
Right.
So sometimes that's a doubt now, how to refuse it in a very sensitive way.
Sure.
And at the same time, it could be very advantageous for one's service in Krishna consciousness. And I find sometimes preachers can get confused on these points, you know.
Yeah, sure. Well, yes, that type of discretion has to be cultivated. Like in my quarters, the big front room, I don't use it, except for chanting japa, and the odd meeting, I don't actually use it. I have my little office in the back there, and anyway. I shouldn't have said that actually, but it's true. Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Just thinking along those lines, I think devotees, you know, to show sincerity and to feel it, you have to impose inconveniences upon yourself. We call it tapasya, austerity. We should never leave that behind. That's the real opulence. That is the greatest richness. And that I have an option to do that. It doesn't have to be forced on me by others. Of course, we have our rules and regulations, but when we do have all this opulence and we have the best food and all the best, you know, comfortable clothes and all that stuff, sometimes we have to impose upon ourselves those inconveniences Whether it's a cold shower or whatever, or fast, or, those kind of things. Is, if for a sincere soul, I think that's the endeavor that you have to take. Hare Krishna.
Yukta Vairagya, it's not as simple as it sounds. It really isn't as simple as it sounds, but it's an extremely important principle. If we actually not lived under trees, but lived in really simple, not just accommodation, but like temple facility. If it was really, really simple, the movement would not, I take it, would not have expanded the way it has, like this building here. Yeah. It stimulated the development of the movement in massive ways. It was quite incredible, actually. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada K.